What's up everyone, welcome to the video. Today we're going to be focusing on installing the Fore Innovations fuel system on the Mustang, but I figured before I kind of get into all that, I'd just give you a quick little update. So the motor is all officially done, dressed and everything like that. I threw the wiring harness up on it last night just to kind of test and see, you know, what everything was looking like. I did get all the pulleys and everything, alternator, water pump, ATI damper pulley and everything like that is now installed. So we did do a quick compression test on the Mustang because we are getting ready to go ahead and obviously swap the motor, which I'm planning to probably get to next weekend. But before we do all that, I did want to start with the fuel system, so stay tuned. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting install. Nothing too crazy, but let's go ahead and show you guys what we have sitting here. So this is the JPC 1000 horsepower E85 budget fuel system. Comes with a Fore Innovations fuel hat with a double pump. I believe these are Walboro 465s, I'm not 100%. They are the TI Automotive, and then you can see the part number there, so I'll look it up and double check that. So it comes with your Dash 8 fuel feed as well as Dash 6 return line. You've got a nice thick power wire right here, a big 100 amp inline fuse. You got a bunch of the little zip tie things, whatever those are called, for holding the lines underneath the car. Most important thing is this relay right here. This is the fuel filter. This is kind of a big boy, but runs with Dash 8 on both sides. This is all push lock line as well, so we may leave that for now, but I may change it later on. We're just going to run with it in the meantime. They send you this relay box. It's all pre-wired and everything. You've got your power wires, I believe the signal and ground and everything, and then if you pop the little box off the top here, you can check out the relays and then the 230 amp fuses. So this actually is ready to go. If I were to want to go ahead and do a triple pump setup, I could just pick up another relay, drop that in, do a little bit of wiring, throw in a 30 amp fuse, and bam, now we're ready to go. Because I'll also show you on the Fore Innovations fuel hat here, so you have the two pumps ready to go, which are all wired up and everything, but you have a provision for the third pump right here. So all I would need to do is pick up a third pump, wire that in, and we'd be set, because the wiring is all up top here. You have your powers and grounds as well as what I believe is the level sender wiring right there. Last but not least, we have our fuel regulator here, as well as a couple fittings for the fuel rails. I believe this is the vacuum line for reference, and then all of your little hog clamps for the push lock lines. These little fittings came with the vacuum line. I believe this one is, it's because you can just like press the plastic line in. So I believe that one just goes in there, and then this one I'm going to figure out. I don't really know how that works, but it may just slide into like the manifold or something. So that's everything, nothing too crazy complicated. The fuel pressure is already gone, I guess, at this point on the car because we did the compression test and I just pulled the fuel pump fuse. So we went ahead and did all that test and everything. So the first things first, we're just gonna jump into the back seat and work on getting the fuel pump hats swapped out. This may jump around a little bit in terms of the install and everything because it may happen over a couple days, we'll see. But my main focus is getting that fuel pump swapped out because then I can actually drop it into bombshell. Main reason being, I took the time to drop the fuel tank out of that car yesterday, get it all cleaned up inside and out. And I want to go ahead and obviously drop in the fuel pump so that we can get it all sealed up and not worried about, okay, is more debris going to continue to get into the tank and everything. So if you guys aren't already familiar with Project Bombshell, that's my wife's 2014 Mustang GT CS that we're going to be restoring, and it is actually going to be receiving my old motor, so that's kind of why all this stuff works out really good. So if you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider doing so. We obviously have tons of awesome content coming. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into everything. Get a cage, they said. It'll be fun. Yay, now I have to figure out how to get past the seats into the back seat. Rip. So I just disconnected the plug to the fuel pump. It's this little piece that goes in the rubber hat. There's just a red piece that you pop out right here. And once that's out, then you can press this and slide it off like normal. And now with this to the side, we can focus on getting the fuel line off. Little blue clip. There's two tabs on the side, and then you spread them, and then this will let that come off, and you can slide the fuel line off, I believe. Actually, no, there's one more thing that you push on the top. Yes, okay. So there's this tab on the top here. You push that, which will then release the clip so that you can pull the line off here. You want to make sure you have, like, you know, towels and whatnot at the ready, because it's going to get messy with the fuel once you pull this pump. I did go ahead and vacuum in here before I got to this point, just to kind of keep things a little bit extra clean when moving forward. To get this ring off, you are going to want to take a hammer and like a flathead, basically use that as like a chisel type thing, and you'll rotate the ring around until it releases, and that will let the fuel pump come up. Now I can go ahead and pull the fuel pump out, but I am going to pause a second because I got to get the ring out, and I got to like cut this metal here, create a tab so that I have additional space to pull this ring out, because otherwise it normally doesn't actually fit. So I'll be back in a sec. Alright, so we got our ring out, and I'll show you real quick what I did. See this tab here? I just took some wire cutters, kind of bent the metal until I got those two little breaks, and then I bent the tab up. And you can see it offers tons of space to get the ring in and out. And then when I'm done, I can bend it back down, and the rubber boot will kind of help seal that back up. So I got a bunch of extra paper towels here, so when we pull this, we can try and minimize how much fuel gets everywhere here. Now there is a level sender on here, and I don't know which side it is yet. One thing to keep in mind too, I would absolutely recommend trying to, you know, minimize how much gas you have in the tank when doing this, so that you don't have as much go everywhere. Shake it around and try and get some of the gas out of the container and into the tank. Alright, so we do have this little crossover line that I need to disconnect. Okay, there we go. And we're going to do our best not to drop this tube. This is a crossover tube to the other side of the tank, by the way. We're just going to tuck it there for now. Alright, and there's our fuel pump. And we use our rags to kind of mop up some of this gas that's leaking out. See if I can pour some back in. Oh, yeah, there we go. Well, that wasn't the smoothest, but you know, you get the idea. So let's go ahead and take this outside of the car, and we'll be able to kind of go over what needs to happen. So we have our stock fuel pump here now, and we just need to pop off the level sender so that we can transfer that to the new pump. There we go. Alright, and then these two wires, we just need to cut those, and then we'll tap them into the new fuel pump. There we go. Easy peasy. I don't think there's a right or wrong on this thing, so we're just going to cut this bad boy off. That's it. Alright, got the level sender all bolted up here. I ended up messing up one of the connectors, so I had to go grab some of my own. So now that these are all sealed up, we're going to go ahead and drop the pump back into the tank. Alright, so to drop this back in, just need to be careful and put it in on an angle. And of course it seems our crossover tube has dipped out again. So now that I go fishing, shit, I forgot that clip. Alright, there we have it. Our fuel hat is back in place. Now we can throw on the lock ring and be done. All right, fuel lock ring is back in place, and that's it for the fuel head. We do have to obviously do a little wiring, but we'll come back to that later. All right, so the power wire right here that goes all the way back to the relay box, that's going to be, you know, in the back trunk area. You have to start it up here at the positive on the battery terminal, so have that tapped in, and then you have an inline fuse that has to go within like about 6 to 12 inches or so from the start of the power wire. And I've got this this firewall thing is going to be coming off when I pull the motor and everything, because you got to be able to get the rest of the access to it. So this is going to work out perfectly. There's a stud right here that holds this in place. I was able to open up the hole on the fuse holder, put a little nut on there, keep that nice and pretty. So this is going to be real low key and discreet. So I'll run that power wire along the back of the firewall there, and then it'll drop down and then go back to the trunk area. Also, speaking of the trunk area, so we have our relay box right here, and I believe what I'm actually going to do, you can kind of see I've already got the wires fished through. This is probably going to mount right here by the speaker, which I think is going to be awesome and super low key, lets the wires kind of fish through and go where they need to go, which I still have yet to, you know, get all that solidified, but you have to run the red wires over to the fuel pump there. I was originally looking at putting it over here where the fuel pump booster used to be, but that was a little close to the end of the wire, so I'd rather use less wire than more. So I think that spot is gonna actually be pretty perfect. All right, box is all mounted, just 3 little self-tap screws. All right guys, so we're back now. It's been a couple days. I actually picked up some new stuff, and I'll go ahead and show you that. So we're focusing on the wiring, kind of getting all that wrapped up. But this is our inline fuse, and as you can tell, it looks way nicer, the wiring now, because I picked up some of this like TexFlex stuff or whatever it's called. It's basically just sheathing that you put around the wire to kind of help protect a little bit. And then I heat shrunk on both ends, and then I also picked up this stuff. They're called ferrules, I believe. And it's kind of like a process that I believe is called tinning. So you basically slide this over the exposed copper. You got like a little sheath thing, and then you crimp it down with this bad boy, so that you can see right there. So that's kind of like our now tinned end of the wire, and this will go into the inline fuse and then tighten down. And the point of that, I believe, is just to keep this wire from fraying once you tighten down that screw, so like vibrations and stuff won't make it loosen up over time. So now the focus is to get all this into the car, which is now in the air. I've got bombshell back down. This is in the air for things getting ready to come. Stay tuned for that. But we're gonna go ahead and get the wire routed from around the back of there down in through the wheel well. So the wire is gonna come through right there, and then there's this little nipple thing on the rubber boot grommet, so I'm gonna cut that off, and I should be able to fish the wire through there and then down through the interior back to the relay box, which is mounted in the trunk, as you guys saw. All right, so here we have the only evidence of our power cable. It is tucked through the wheel well, and then tucked up underneath the paneling here, and then it comes up underneath the B pillar, and then you can see it where it comes out right over there, super discreet, and then goes up to our box right there with the rest of the wiring. There's where the wire comes through the wheel well and then back into the engine bay, and then up here, and then goes over to our fuse, which is now tightened down and ready to go. So that's just gonna be chilling until later once we have the motor out and pull that firewall cover thing. So the next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and tap in for our level sender for the gas gauge. On our pump here, the 2 thin black wires that already have crimp things are the level sender wiring. So that comes through the pump, and I got some heat shrink already slid on the tube here. And then on the cover, the little rubber pop thing, you just cut these 2 wires, and then where it comes out is where you want to tap into the crimps. So we're going to go ahead and remove the shielding stuff. And I don't believe it matters which one of these you put where, because I believe there's no real positive or negative route that these go, because it's just a matter of creating a contact and completing the signal, I believe. Could be wrong. All right, nice and sturdy. And then, so just because I am doing some heat shrink to kind of seal these up a little bit, protect it from the elements. This one's a little short, so I'm gonna do one side at a time. All right, and that's that. So we're just gonna leave this off to the side for now, and before I get into the actual wiring of the pumps here, I'm gonna go ahead and start running the fuel lines. So we have the feed and return lines, so I'm gonna go underneath the car, pull these old lines out just to make room because there's no point anymore, so I'm just gonna pull it. Maybe see if I can salvage it for Melissa's car, but not really expecting that to be the case because it's a hard line. And then we'll run our new lines. I don't know how long it's been now, but man, I tell you what, these hard lines were a freaking bitch. I have welded subframe connectors and they're welded over the hard lines. So like usually you just loosen the two 10 millimeters or whatever and it starts to drop the middle section of the hard lines, but it's not the case here. So I tried figuring out how to just like cut the metal, but they're stainless steel, so they're very tough metal, so you can't really just bend it that easily, and no way of cutting it per se without like one of those metal tube cutting things, and I don't have any of those. It's either wait for tomorrow to try and get them out or do what I did, which was probably not the best idea, but I did try and be smart about it. So I just used a Dremel with a cutoff wheel and just cut the lines at like a couple different places over the axle, in the middle area, and then like towards the front. So obviously you want to be mindful when doing that kind of thing because sparks and whatnot, and it is a fuel line. But I did go ahead and blow through the fuel line and like blow all that fuel out of the line. So I made sure it was pretty much empty or close to it. That way I didn't have any type of fire or anything. But that being said, we can finally start fishing the fuel lines. Okay, so I've got my fittings tightened all the way down on the hat here, and then the hole for kind of where I'm gonna aim to push the lines down is right about here. There's a nice opening, and that's kind of where the fuel line normally comes up. So just gonna push it down. Okay, that felt like I made pretty good progress. I'm gonna go check and see if I can pull it through on the bottom. Alright, let's see if I can push this return line through. Should be a little easier since it's smaller. Oh dang, still a ton of line left. So these just push on. These are push lock. So just push the hose onto the fitting. And once you have it on there nice and secure, then you can come in and tighten down your hog ring. Like a special type of plier that you're supposed to use. But then you just take the hog rings and compress it. So that should be nice and tight. That's not going to go anywhere. And we can kind of finish pulling that through.
Keep going just a little bit more. All right, stop with the little one. Actually, the big one's good too. Yeah, they're good.
All right, now that our lines are run, we're just gonna tighten down these fittings and we'll be done with that. So there's our 4 fuel hat and lines that are all now run. Just gotta quick hit them with the wrench, make sure they're fully tight, and then that's it. Close this up. I'll run the power and grounds through the hat here so that these can then tap into them outside of the pump area. Okay, so underneath the car now, this is the fuel tank where the lines come down, and you can see my welded subframe connectors and as well as all the pink. I've already got the lines kind of tucked up a little bit and started to figure out how I want to route them. So this is our feed line. It's obviously hanging out right now because I gotta actually cut it for the filter. So I'll be mounting that in just a minute, but I did go ahead and start running the return line as well. And I found that the return line actually sits in the little groove, or I guess clip where the evap line runs because it's a little bit thicker, so that kind of sits in there pretty good. So I've got that run all the way up and then through the front there at the K-member, and then it's chilling at the moment because I have to start tucking it up in the engine bay, but I want to obviously work on the feed line first. And so we're going to be mounting this inline fuel filter right about here. I'm going to have to actually mount the little brackets going into the floor pan, which I'm not crazy about, but it's actually a little too big to be able to mount on this frame rail thing here. So we're gonna mount into the floor pan, it is what it is, and then that'll let it continue running up through the front there and look really good. So I'll show you guys that in a second. We're just using these little mounting brackets with some self-tap screws, so pretty simple. Now with that mounted, we can cut our line to then install the fitting here. That was really easy. I just got these for the wiring stuff, so I've never actually used them for hose cutting, so I wasn't sure that was gonna work, but that was actually super freaking easy. So, now that that line's in place, you just need to run this one from the front, and then same idea, install our fitting, and we'll be able to move to the top side to finish running the fuel lines. Alright, so I got the lines all routed up through there, and then they come out into the engine bay right here. So I'm just gonna do that little strap thing, tighten that down. We'll mount our fuel regulator. Then from the fuel regulator, we're just gonna have the one feed line go from the regulator over to the fuel rail, and then we just have to run a vacuum line, but that's it. The hardware portion of the fuel system is all done. There's a little bit of wiring left to do, but otherwise, we're almost there. It's good stuff. So now that we have the regulator mounted, we're going to go ahead and cut the fuel lines so that we can mount the fittings, and that will all be done, and just need to finish up the line going to the fuel rail once the motor's back in the car. I left it with a little bit of like extra slack so that if I ever need to pull the regulator off, I can do that, and then kind of lift it up to provide a little bit more space. That's about 3 inches of slack, nothing too crazy, just a little bit. Got our lines all run, they come up through there, come up to the regulator here. So you have your feed on the left, your return on the bottom, and then where it goes to the rail is on the right here, which is just chilling because obviously we still need to cut it, but that's all done. So we can move on to the next step. All right guys, quick little fast forward. And just like that, motor's back in the car. So now the last thing we need to do on this fuel system is just kind of cut this last line that goes from the regulator here up to the fuel rail back here. As you can see, that's the fitting right there. So it just kind of loops down and back up and over. So just gonna make my measurement and then cut the hose and put the fitting on the hose, and we're done. Seriously, so glad I picked these things up. They do such a good job. Highly recommend getting you a set of hose cutter type pliers. Most important thing, don't forget your freaking hog ring. Man, I almost forgot this now. Last thing I've got right here, this is my boost reference, or I guess map reference for the fuel regulator. You want to tap this into a vacuum source. So I've got it run down up underneath and then over, and it's going to tap into this little T right here, which is going to the manifold and leads over to the brake booster as well as my boost sensor. So I'm going to tap it into that. Nothing exciting there. Clamp it down, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, and then that's it for the hardware install. I do have a little bit of wiring left to do, but nothing too complicated. I just want to take a quick second to acknowledge how low key this is. So you have the regulator there, which does have a little bit of clearance on the dipstick tube. This is the 2015 style dipstick, so they stick up a little bit higher. No big deal, I think that'll be fine. But the power wire goes right there. Super low key, fuse to the power. Very nice. Alright, so I just wrapped up the wiring on the fuel system. Figured I'd go ahead and show you guys it real quick. I tried to make it pretty clean. This conduit right here covers the 2 green wires, which you can see right there, coming from the JPC fuse relay box, and that taps into this thicker, yellow with silver stripe on the fuel pump module. And then I went ahead and obviously took out the Kenny Bell booster pump, and since that taps into this purple wire here, I had to finish the wire again. So that's done. And then over here on the box we have another piece of conduit coming down, and that's the 2 power and grounds coming from the fuel pumps. And to show you the rest I have to jump in the trunk, so give me a sec. Hope you guys appreciate me going through this. Show you some freaking wiring. Here's our main power wire coming from the engine bay. That goes onto the little stud in the relay box here. And we have, like I said, the 2 power wires and the 2 grounds are coming down here. And I just kind of routed that along with the factory harness down to here, where you have the 2 grounds that come out from the relay box. And then you just want to put it onto something that's like a unpainted ground, so that's going to be tightened down there. And then the 2 power wires finish going over to the fuel pump there, and then you also have the 2 grounds off of the fuel pumps, which then come out, and I just tapped it down into 1 wire. It's a little bit thicker gauge than they are, and then same thing on the unpainted ground here. So I'm just going to tighten this down, and then that's it for the wiring. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can get the fuel pump to prime. So I tried to crank the car the other day for the first time, and nothing happened. Thought maybe it had something to do with the fuel pump wiring, so now that's all officially done. Everything's ready to go. Everything's been clipped back together. I double checked the grounds once more across the vehicle. Everything looks good. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't crank. So we're gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna key on, see if the fuel pump's prime, and then I'm gonna disconnect the fuel pump fuse so that it doesn't actually try and start on me. But we're gonna try and turn the motor over a couple times, and hopefully it cranks. I don't know what it is, man. I got more to figure out. All right, it's, I don't know when it is. It's probably like 2 days since last you guys saw me, and finally figured out what was going on. I'm an idiot. I put the fuse for the fuel pump back in the wrong spot. You're supposed to put it in 13, slot 13, and I put it in 15 like an idiot. Now the fuel pump's primed, so Melissa was just out here helping me. We primed it a couple times, and I think I've got it about 55 PSI for base fuel pressure. Now that I know we have good fuel pressure, I found some leaks in the fuel lines because I forgot to tighten some things like an idiot. I went ahead and tightened those things up. We now have no leaks, it looks like, and we did see 50 and 60 PSI up on the fuel regulator. So to me that says that we have good seals all throughout the lines, because it reached peak PSI and then just drained back into the tank since there's no check valve in the system. But that being said, I think we're gonna attempt to crank it one more time. Melissa's gonna do the honors. I'm just gonna pull the fuel pump so it doesn't actually get fuel to the motor and whatnot, so it doesn't actually accidentally start, because we're still waiting on the base tune. So let's see what happens. Yep.
Alright, tell me when.
It might take a second to kick on because it's got to build up fuel pressure up to the rail and everything. But once it does, it should just...
Okay.
Go ahead and give it a shot. So I still have to go in and set my base pressure, but outside of that, the fuel system is now fully installed and functioning. So I give that a big thumbs up. So hopefully you guys found this video educational. I know it was kind of hard to see some of that stuff probably But I did the best I could to kind of give you guys a really good view of everything and in-depth explanation of what all's going on. So feel free to drop any comments down below if you got any questions on the install. I'll do my best to answer them for you. If it was a helpful video for you, definitely hit the like button. YouTube likes that kind of thing. And obviously subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content and want to stay tuned for more stuff like this. I am really excited about what is about to go down with the new motor and everything, so you can stay up to date on all of that and we can see what this Frankenstein Coyote is able to do. So that's going to do it, guys. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one.